What is up, y'all? Today was going to be a different video, but that didn't pan out, so I'm going to have to figure out how to fix that. It's a painting idea for my makeup drawers, but I have to get different paint for that because I thought I had the right ones, but it didn't. But I thought I would talk about, there's a few movies, so there's going to be a few of these videos posted probably today or throughout the week, we'll see. But the first one was Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. It came out in 2016 and it was directed by Tim Burton, which already was an A+ in my book because I love everything he does. But it starts out with this kid named Jake who is in therapy because I guess he's going through a lot of things mentally, mostly. But he has to go home to help his grandpa. And as he's on his way there, he finds, my brain's scattered today. On his way there, he's almost to his grandpa's house, and they drive by this figure that just appears. And Jake sees him. He has white eyes, and I'm like, okay, that's creepy. We'll figure out what that is later. But as he's driving by, that figure pulls up to his grandpa's house, goes in the front door, and it looks like he was robbed because he's not in the house. So he's walking through the house. He goes to the back door. It looks like it's been ripped because it's not glass. It's made out of a metal material. He just ripped through it, or whatever ripped through it. And he's in the backyard and he's telling the person that drove him, I don't remember her name. She's like, hold on, wait right here. Well, of course, being curious like he is, he keeps walking and he walks into the forest and he hears things, and then all of a sudden he turns around and he sees his grandpa pretty much dying on the ground. And his eyeballs are gone. So he questions that. He's like, okay, that's kind of odd. But then what happens after this? Oh, it gets to the point where his parents are kind of there for him, but not really there for him. If that makes any sense. They're just physically there as people. They don't really take care of him that much. It was more his grandpa was the person that kind of made him creative and keep his mind open a lot as a kid. Because his dad, that was his dad, the one that died, he was very always like, Grandpa's weird. You'll never understand it. It's just don't listen to anything he says. That kind of thing. Well, then there was something. Ooh, excuse me. He gave him on his birthday, Jake's birthday, and it was from his grandpa. I think it was a note or a postcard from Miss Peregrine and this is based on a book too, also, if you didn't know. But it was from her. I think it was checking on him, and it said where they were from. So they go to his therapist, him and his parents, and he's like, why don't we go to where he's from? It'll help me get better and be able to move on from his death, that kind of thing. The parents aren't really for it. The therapist is like, why not? You never know, it might work. So that's when they go. The first day they get there, you find out that the place they're staying in, the hotel or motel, it used to be a pub, but you'll find out how you find out. That is kind of cool. But when they get to their hotel, he wants to explore, so his dad lets him. But he pays these kids that are in their area to show him where the school or home that he was from Well, they're showing him the way. They're being asshole kids, of course. He gets covered in mud. He sees the house. It's abandoned. It looks like it's no one's lived there for decades at this point. He goes back to the bar and he's talking to this guy and he's like, "Yeah, those kids aren't that great," kind of thing, like telling him like he knew that they were assholes. And he asks him what happened to the house and he says there was a bombing on it like decades before. It's like, well, that kind of sucks. So he tells his dad, and he's like, well, what are we supposed to do now? Oh, yeah. And then he goes into the house the next day. Like, I guess he breaks in. Not really. The house it's huge and gross and nasty. He just goes to explore the house with no one there. Then he starts seeing people or kids all over the house. And he, like, runs away because he's scared, obviously. He trips and falls and kind of knocks himself out. He wakes up and there's like this 2-year-old little girl, maybe 4 years old. I don't really know the ages of these kids, but she's very little. She's literally holding him on her shoulders, like strong as can be. Then kind of drops him on the ground, and he wakes up, and he's like, "Where the hell am I?" Well, then he starts to recognize who everyone is because his grandpa showed him pictures of them when he was younger. So he starts to name them off one by one, getting them all right. Because at first the kids thought that he was the grandpa, because they looked similar, obviously. But then they go into the cave, and they're like, "Yeah, you should come with us and come see the house and blah blah blah." He gets freaked out. He runs out of the cave, not knowing what they already did. But pretty much he runs out of the cave and runs to what he thinks is still the hotel that he's staying at. Lo and behold, it jumped back in time. I forgot what they called it. It's not a portal, but they called it something similar to that. They went back in time to when the kids were still in the house, like it looks normal. But it's a bar now at this point. It's not a hotel yet. So when he runs in there, all the adults are like, "Who the hell is this kid?" He's like, "I have a room key," because he actually does. They're like, "This place isn't a hotel. What are you talking about?" And they start pretty much almost wanting to beat his ass. I'm like, who wants to beat up like a 16-year-old kid? That's kind of rude. But then the kids from Miss Peregrine's home, they all show up and like protect him. They get him out of the bar, save him, whatever. Then this is when they show up to the house when it's normal, like nothing's happened to it. It looks great actually. You meet Miss Peregrine and then the kids, and you see that they're all peculiar or different. Like they have abilities and that kind of thing. You get to know all their stories. A loop. That's what it's called. It's called a loop. Forgot I wrote that down. You find out that they live in a thing called a loop, which Miss Peregrine, I forgot her abilities, but she's the one who can like create loops, and it resets. She has to reset it every day. But the kids keep living the same day. They don't age, nothing. But if they left a loop wanting to live in like modern day, they would die because they created their loop in like the 50s, I think, and it's now in 2016, so they would be dead. But the loops were created because of there was some peculiars that wanted to live forever without living in a loop. Well, the spirit or the person that Jake saw at the beginning of the movie when he was driving to his grandpa's house, they're called a hologhast, is what they call them. They're the monsters because they did this test to take the people with the abilities like Miss Peregrine, and apparently their abilities keep people, or they think that the abilities that they have can keep you useful forever and never age and whatever. So they did a test on one of them, and it went wrong, and it turned them into the hologhast, the monsters that you see throughout the movie. The kids get to know Jake. They don't want him to leave, that kind of thing. He says, "I have to go. I have my own life," that kind of thing. And then He goes back home and his dad's like, "Where the hell were you?" And he lies to his dad and says he was with the kids from the day before. Well, as they're walking back home, a guy, I guess, that owns a farm or something like that. There's two of the two kids that walked to show them the house in the beginning are there being like, "We didn't do this. What are you talking about?" So they walk over and the guy's like, "Where did you do this?" He's like, "No, I was with them all day." And the guys are like, "No, you weren't with us all day. Why would you paid us yesterday? Why would we do it for free?" Like they're being assholes. And the dad's like, "Why are you lying?" He's like, "My son wouldn't do this," because the farmer says that, or you see that I can't remember if it was cows or sheep, but like all of his animals are dead in the pasture. All of them are dead. And he's like, "Why would I do this? I wasn't even here," that kind of thing. So then the dad's like freaking out, doesn't want him to be traumatized any more than he already is, calls his therapist, freaks out, that kind of stuff. And the dad says, "You're going to stick around me the whole time, the rest of this trip. You're not going anywhere else." So then later that day, they go to the beach because the dad, I guess, is writing a book about birds or something. I don't really know. They're about to take pictures of birds on the beach or something like that. And they meet, he's a newer character who's doing the same thing. He's explaining that he's also writing a book about taking pictures, and that kind of makes the dad be like, "Well, shit, if he's gonna write a book, then I shouldn't even do that." And then I think as they were heading to the beach the next day to do it again, to do the same fucking thing, because the dad's like, "You're not going anywhere," they find a dead body on the beach, and like the whole town's freaking out. And one of the I think it's either the bar owner or someone that
God, they're so
goes to the
loud.
bar every day. Either the bar owner
God,
or
they're so
someone that
loud.
goes to the bar every day. I don't remember. He walks up to Jake and his dad and is like, "I know everyone here and no one here would do this. You two and him are the only new ones here," meaning the other photographer, bird dude. He's like, "I know everyone here but you three." So he like is questioning it. Well, that's when Jake kind of freaks out and he's like, "I need to go back to the house, the Miss Peregrine's house." So he bolts off on the beach, goes to the cave to like go back in time and whatever, go through a loop. And the dad's chasing him and he can't get to him. And the photographer dude, conveniently, chases him and follows him. And as he's going in the cave, you think he's a normal dude, but then Jake is like, "You got through here? Because only people that are peculiar can get through the caves. Like, no one human, like a normal human, couldn't go through it." So that's when you find out the figure at the beginning of the movie that Jake saw was acting as the photographer dude and his therapist. Because that's like some of his abilities. He can turn himself to look like anything. So he was faking as two different people the whole time. So he pretty much captures him and goes to Miss Peregrine's house and is like, "If you don't come with me, I'm killing all your children." Pretty much. She gets in the cage, leaves with him. She leaves with him, you know. And that's when, obviously, they have to reset the loop or they're going to be attacked by a monster because that was Miss Peregrine's also her issue with the loop. She didn't make the perfect loop to where something bad was going to constantly happen. She had to stop the loop, or either the house would actually go away, like be bombed, and there's a monster that appears every single time they reset, so she's had to kill it every single time. But since she's gone, they have to do it. So they fight the monster, they all get out, the house explodes actually, because the explosion causes the monster to die, because they all jump out of the house before it explodes. Then they go to find Miss Peregrine, obviously. It's the main villain and like four other monsters, something like that. Because the only reason because you find out the reason why the grandpa's eyes were gone, because that reverses the effects of becoming a monster when they did the experiment the first time. So they go to another loop that was created that year, 2016. It's at like a carnival. Yeah, okay. Pretty much they have this whole fight scene where they get rid of most of the monsters, of course. Then Jake releases I forgot what they're called, but he releases Miss Peregrine and all the other versions of creatures that are like her free. And he's telling the villain, like, it's over. You literally can't use them anymore. They're all gone. And the final scene, it's the girl that falls for Jake, and then another person, I can't remember their name. They walk into the room as he's fighting the villain. Obviously, the villain can turn into anyone. He turns into Jake, so they look exactly the same. And the friends are not being able to tell them apart. You find out Jake is actually not normal throughout the movie. He's a peculiar. He has abilities, and you find out him and his grandpa are the same. They have the same ability where they can actually see the monsters. Like, that's his ability. And in that scene, you see him looking at a monster behind the villain. Obviously, the villain can't see them, so he's just standing there like, what the hell? Obviously, he gets grabbed and killed. His eyes get pulled out, because obviously he can't see the monster. He's just there. The monster kills him, and then the friend throws like this weird bow thing, and he shoots it and kills the last monster or whatever. Pretty much that's where the movie ends. And it's a thing of Jake wants to be with her, but they can't be with each other because if she leaves the loop, that she ages like quickly, so it would catch up with her. So, and also, for some reason, it's weird how this worked, but since he killed the villain when he went back to like through time and all that shit, his grandpa was alive again. Like, it was this whole loop thing. It's explained in the movie. It's hard to vocally explain it unless you see it. But like, he pretty much ends up saving his grandpa's life, so he's alive currently in 2016 and everything. So he, instead of giving him like the thing for his birthday, he actually gives him a book that's full of money. He's like, go after her. So you see his character go through, not through everything, but like he appears where she's at in the new loop that they live in, and he explains where he had to go. He like went through multiple loops through different times to get to her in the current one that she lives in. And it's like they dyed his hair and made him look a little older, because obviously he's gonna age throughout them all, but she's not. It's like they like gave him darker hair, made him look a little different, to be like, oh yeah, I did all this shit just to come and see your ass. But overall, I think it was a really good movie. It's probably one of my highest ranking ones so far. I gave it a 4 out of 5. And I didn't do it for this, but I thought of the idea later on. I'm making a pros and cons list for each thing that I watch. Like, pros that it's this, and cons it could have, you know. I don't think I had any. Like, the animation was good, the casting was good. Like, nothing was ever boring throughout this whole movie, and I'm starting to get used to, because obviously for me growing up, movies weren't 2 hours long, and that's like the norm now, so I have to get used to that, because I'm like, the movie's too long, it has extra scenes. I'm like, well, actually it doesn't. It fills it out perfectly, honestly. I don't even think that movie was 2 hours long. I think it was at 2 hours, maybe. I'll have to write that shit down. But yeah, I'll give it a 4 out of 5. It was a really good movie. And Tim Burton directed it, so it had that whole dark feeling throughout the whole thing, which I liked. So, yeah. That's my little review. But yeah, you should definitely go watch this movie. And you obviously have to lower your expectations of, like, believing in this kind of thing. That's what also I've done with all the movies. I'm like, I can't go in with, like, walls up and shit and be like, ugh. Like, I have to drop my walls and just immerse myself into whatever I'm watching, which I've always done, because I've always been so into like fantasy and all that kind of shit. So this movie was like perfect for me. As like it was just enough to where it was just enough fantasy and normal, so to speak, that it was like good at balancing between the two. So the casting was so good. I love the twins. Their ability isn't revealed until like the end of the movie, and it's fucking hilarious. But yeah, it's very cool. I definitely want to go watch this movie again. So I might just do that. Have a good day.